So now to the main speech. Mr. Speaker, this week Canadians were treated to all the pomp and ceremony of a throne speech, delivered by His Majesty King Charles himself, but as we know, written by the Prime Minister. Now, tucked into all the lofty words and grand gestures was this promise. The government would be guided by what they called a new fiscal discipline. Spend less so Canadians can invest more. But when the Ways and Means motion was tabled this week, rather than reducing the annual increase in spending to below 2% like they promised, we see a whopping 8.4% in increased federal spending. Now, when you put all those numbers together, the Prime Minister will be spending 71% more than the Trudeau government projected in their fall estimates. Is it really a good idea to pull the wool over Canadians' eyes with fancy accounting tricks to make the books look good? But this whole idea of spend less so Canadians can invest more sounds great until you think about it for 5 seconds. It's kind of like telling your kids, we're saving money this month while standing in the checkout line with a brand new flat screen TV. You're not saving, you're spending, and someone's going to have to pay for it. Meanwhile, families are buckling under the weight of rising prices. I talk to people at the door, in church, at the grocery store, and they're cutting back on groceries, not just gadgets. They're cancelling their family summer plans just to keep up with mortgage payments. And yet, this government is talking about the largest transformation of Canada's economy since the Second World War. That doesn't come cheap. That'll need to be paid for. Canadians want a proper budget so we can see what this transformation will actually cost. It's time to stop the overspending, stop creating inflation, and give Canadians a real chance to catch their breath. Because this isn't just about today's prices. When governments overspend, the cost hits every one of us through higher interest rates, cuts to services, and broken promises. And when the bill comes due, it doesn't land on the Prime Minister's desk, it lands in the laps of our children and grandchildren. If we don't act now, we won't just lose our standard of living, we'll be handing them a country we can't afford to fix. Now, speaking of things that young Canadians can't afford, let's talk about housing. While I was out door knocking during the campaign, I met a young man standing outside his townhouse. Small place, nice guy, probably early 30s. He told me he had a good job, saved hard, and even with help from his parents, just barely scraped together enough for a down payment. Now, with interest rates high for him and costs climbing, he looked me in the eye and he said, I always hoped that one day I could move into a place with enough room to raise a family. But with the way things are going, that dream is slipping away. And that stuck with me. So imagine my shock when I found out that the new housing minister, this government's so-called solution to the crisis, is the former mayor of Vancouver, the same guy who saw housing prices explode under his watch. Vancouver didn't just become expensive, it became one of the most unaffordable cities on the planet. If that's their idea of help, we should all be very worried. Now, this government says they're going to double housing starts, but honestly, none of that matters if they don't fix the real problems: red tape, broken permitting systems, and crushing taxes on building. The numbers don't lie. Costs are up, and young Canadians are giving up on ever owning a home. Mr. Speaker, a country where the next generation can't afford to put down roots is a country in trouble. We need a plan that gets homes built, not headlines written. And this government solution, let me read it straight from their own platform. They're going to get the federal government back into the business of the home building. Another new agency that they're creating, Build Canada Homes, that's going to act as a developer using our money to build housing on public land. They're planning to pour billions into free prefab houses and in low-cost financing to government-approved developers. But here's the thing. They don't want to help you build your own future. They want to build it for you using your money, and they own the keys. Housing is supposed to be about ownership, about roots, stability, and a future you can build. But under this plan, that dream is slipping away further and further out of reach. And they're creating a system where more and more Canadians will rent from the government, homes built with your tax dollars on your public land with no chance to own. I'm thinking of young couples working 2 jobs, trying to save while prices keep rising. The new Canadian who came here for a better life, only to find that ownership is out of reach, and seniors watching their children and grandchildren struggle to afford what they themselves took for granted. The truth is, this isn't just a housing crisis, it's a hope crisis. A whole generation is being locked out, and we owe it to them to do better. We don't need more government landlords. We need a government that respects your dream to own a home and fights to make that possible. Now, housing shouldn't be a luxury that few can afford, but you know what else shouldn't be a luxury? Public safety. It's a basic promise, one that this government has broken time and time again, almost as if it was by design. They've been slow to jail repeat violent criminals, but quick to treat law-abiding Canadians like criminals with their handgun bans. They go easy on gang members and carjackers, but come down hard on licensed trained sport shooters and collectors. People who've done nothing wrong except follow the rules. But that's the Liberal approach to justice, isn't it? Punish the innocent, excuse the guilty, put the rights of criminals first and the rights of victims last. Let me share a heartbreaking case from right here in my province of BC. In last June, 40-year-old Adam Mann was charged with second-degree murder in the death of a young woman named Tori Dunn in Surrey. At the time of her death, he was out on bail, despite a violent history that included 22 prior convictions and a 12-year sentence for a home invasion. A pre-sentence report had even described him as an unmanageable risk, and yet he was walking free. Tori's family didn't lose their daughter. They lost her to a system that failed them. A system that prioritized the rights of a repeat violent offender over the right of an innocent woman to live her life in peace. Mr. Speaker, that's not justice, and it's not safety. That certainly isn't compassion. Canadians deserve a justice system that protects the public, not one that gambles with their lives. We need real bail reform. We need laws that protect victims, not offenders. And we need a government that stands up for safe communities. Because if we don't get serious now, we're not just risking more crime, we're risking the public's faith in the entire system.
Hear, hear.
Canadians have heard enough empty words. What they need now is a plan, an actual budget in black and white. Or is there just too much red ink for this new Prime Minister to be honest with Canadians? He ran on his resume. He promised competence, credibility, and discipline. But so far, we've seen none of it. No real fiscal restraint, no plan to fix housing, no action on crime, just more borrowed money, more bureaucratic programs, and more empty headlines. If he truly wants to lead, he needs to deliver a budget that stops the bleeding, one that reins in the reckless spending, restores affordability, and gives Canadians back the hope that they're losing. Is this what competence looks like? Is this the stellar economic prowess that the Prime Minister promised millions of voters? I sure hope not, because Canadians deserve better. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. Le député.
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague talks a lot about government spending at the beginning of her speech, and I'd like to know, her party will trigger a by-election soon. I'd like to know, with a taxpayer cost of around $1.5 million for this by-election, do you think this is does she think this is an excessive expense?
We can debate distractions all day, but my job is to stand up here for families who are falling further behind while this government delays in delivering a real plan. And that starts with a real budget, a responsible budget. Mr. Speaker, it's plain and simple. You can't fix affordability without fixing the books. Every day, this government delays tabling a responsible budget. Inflation keeps hurting families. Interest rates stay high. Small businesses can't plan. Retirees can't budget. The longer we wait for a clear plan, the more expensive this crisis becomes. It's time for leadership. It's time to stop the bleeding. Bring forward a budget that shows discipline and respect for the people footing the bill, Canadian taxpayers.
La députée pour.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for her speech. I'm interested in border security, and as a member that represents border riding with the U.S., we've noticed that in the throne speech, we're talking about hiring additional RCMP officers, but they didn't say anything about the government's intention to enhance HR for the CBSA service. Does she not find this abnormal? The former government committed to that they would not mention CBSA hirings in the throne speech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for the question to my honourable colleague. Look, the real question Canadians are asking right now is whether this Prime Minister will deliver a budget that finally shows he understands the cost of living crisis. Mr. Speaker, what Canadians are desperate for is a budget, not another glossy brochure of recycled promises. While this government pushes press conferences and platitudes, families are maxing out their grocery budgets and skipping summer plans just to cover the mortgage. We don't need more words. We need a real fiscal plan, one that reins in the reckless spending, respects taxpayer dollars, and gives our economy a chance to breathe. Without it, we're not just talking about a failure to lead. We're talking about a failure to govern.
The member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the honourable member for the opportunity to ask a question and congratulate her on her back-to-back re-elections. She mentioned the lack of plan from the Prime Minister, and I'm just wondering if she would have stories from her two campaigns of how Canadians view their own budgets and the decisions they have to make in their own households, and whether any of those resemble what we're getting from the government. I thought she might have some insights from her conversations with voters.
The honourable member.
Thank you very much, dear colleague, for that question. I can tell you that it wasn't just from my voters. It's actually from my own experience as a businesswoman. Never, ever did we work without a budget. The reason you need a budget is so you can see if you're on track. If you're not on track, you'll never know. Things will go off the rails very, very quickly. And even the bank requires that you be disciplined by having a budget, following the budget, and making sure you're staying within your expenses.
The member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, I think we can all agree in this House that a tragedy is playing out in Saskatchewan and Manitoba due to the firefires exacerbated by climate change, Mr. Speaker. And I think we can all say that we share in sending our condolences and prayers to the people on the ground that are being impacted, and certainly the first responders. One thing we heard in this election campaign in April, that the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs issued 2 calls to action for election candidates, and one of them was calling for a national fire administration intended to help Canada address and coordinate issues related to wildfires, explosives, housing policy, construction, tariffs, federal response to emergencies, green technologies, marine transportation, clean energy, defence. The list goes on. But a national fire administration would serve as the nucleus of any future emergency management responsible in terms of response to wildfires and an emergency that's playing out right now. Does my colleague agree with the call to action by the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs and how that would help right now?
The honourable member, a quick response, less than 20 seconds.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And absolutely, we need to make sure that we are working to ensure that this tragedy is taken care of, and we will be supporting as much as we can. Thank you.